And joining us now, President and CEO of Green Plains Incorporated, Todd Becker is with us. Todd, great to catch up with you, sir. How are you today?
I'm good, Jesse. How you doing today?
I am fantastic. Thanks for the time joining us here today on the program. And Todd, we got some exciting things to talk about. I just want to start first. Green Plains recently released their 2021 sustainability report. We know sustainability is a hot topic in agriculture. Can you just give us some thoughts and go over that report a little bit, some of the big highlights that we saw there?
Yeah, from Green Plains, sustainability is more than just decarbonization, and we can get into that in a little bit because I think that's an extremely important role that we play in agriculture and agricultural processing and technologies is to understand how to decarbonize these processes and give the world and society what they're looking for from that perspective. But our sustainability report, being a public company, also has to focus on not just environmental, but social and governance and really thinking about those things. So what we did and what we believe the result was put out a couple of years of sustainability reports that we believe are absolutely the standard in the industry and across industries as well. And it really just talks about, how we're focused on a company from everywhere from people to process to our role as an organization from a social perspective and how we run our organization, whether it's from human rights to environmental, to board diversity, to employees, to communities, and so on. And then obviously, most importantly, after taking care of your employees, your customers, your shareholders, and your stakeholders, is really then focusing on the environmental side of our business and how do we continue to decarbonize a platform that traditionally was already, low carbon anyways, contrary to some beliefs of people. I mean, ethanol and biofuels in general already was reducing carbon emissions and was really kind of the true environmental program, a low carbon program that's existed for 20 years. And while maybe the industry lost a little bit of the court of public opinion, we already knew that we reduced carbon emissions out of the tailpipe almost by 60% just by making the fuel. And but just remember, we fight for that. We fight for our place in the fuel supply. So sustainability is extremely important, but it goes beyond just environmental. And I think we have a responsibility and accountability to those that depend on us every day. And whether it's, like I said, whether it's our customers, whether it's our employees, or whether it's our stakeholders, that's really what this report was focused on.
Well, Todd, you mentioned decarbonization, and we look at everything going on in Washington, D.C. right now. I think about some of the different bills that have worked their way through Congress that have a climate focus. And, we look at everything in general with what's happening there. What are your thoughts with where things stand? You mentioned, you made a comment, maybe some folks, we lost the court of public opinion with some for parts of the biofuel, ethanol industry, et cetera. But I mean, thinking about what we're seeing out of DC right now, how does that impact things moving forward? What are your thoughts with just where decarbonization and everything around energy, et cetera, kind of stands right now?
Yeah, I think this program that is coming out on the Inflation Act and the aspects within the legislation as it relates to renewable fuels and biofuels and decarbonization and really is the program that I think will lead this industry and not just what we produce, but this industry in terms of what we put out into the world. It really gives us what we've been looking for, which is a technology neutral clean fuel production credit as really the ultimate goal of where we're going with the industries. But it really sets up well, not Green Plains as well as I think the overall biofuel space to now have a program to invest behind. When somebody said, decarbonization, how much are you spending and what's the return? I often get that question. And I say, well, that's a tough one because the world wants us to decarbonize even further than we already have. But I don't have a program and I don't have a value of carbon. And I don't have, these things set up domestically and globally. So it's hard to allocate investment capital. And what this new program out of DC is, it gives us the ability to understand how to allocate investment capital. So for example, first on the farm. I think, for your audience that listens in, the bill is going to give billions and billions of dollars to help on-farm sustainability practices, even more than what the U.S. producer has already done. Because I strongly believe that the U.S. producer is an environmentalist. I mean, corn farmers and soybean farmers and wheat farmers, they are the true environmentalists. They sink carbon into the ground and they grow things using that carbon, and we can make products out of that, whether it's food, feed, fuels, all the rest of it. And that's the true environmentalist side of agriculture. But the bill gives that billions and billions and millions of dollars to really drive down those practices on the farm. And I think there's an on-farm solution, a full farm solution that has to be thought about, not just nitrogen application and no-till. So I think that's coming. It leads also with this biodiesel tax credit extension. Obviously, that's important to lots of people, and including Green Plains. Even though we don't make renewable diesel, we make a low-carbon vegetable oil that goes into renewable diesel. It's a renewable oil. It's a waste oil. It's not a food oil. And it's half the carbon score almost of soybean oil. So that extended, that gave the certainty to invest in terms of the processing assets behind it, but also gives us certainty that we're going to be able to provide a great product for that industry. And again, there's only one product that they make renewable diesel out of that's lower carbon than distillers corn oil and renewable corn oil like we make, but we have a great product. So it really gives us, I think, is a long-term view of where we're going to go with our products and continue to invest to try and get more oil out of the corn kernel. From there, there's a tax credit on advanced biofuels, a $1 tax credit. That's a fantastic opportunity. A lot of people don't really realize, but in a Generation 1 corn-based ethanol plant, there are now technologies that you can take some of that fuel and convert it into advanced biofuels. And while you don't want to build a whole plant because it might not be economic to do that, the enzymes that were going to be used originally in cellulosic ethanol can now be brought into a corn Generation 1 plant and start to go after some of the fiber, the available sugars that are sitting in the fiber that you couldn't access with traditional enzymes. So that gives us a view that we should invest behind, getting some more advanced biofuels out of our Generation 1 plants. And so that's interesting. There's obviously the infrastructure for blending. I think it's something like $500 million they're going to invest in blending infrastructure to increase the amount of biofuels that are in our gasoline supply. The carbon credit, the 45Q, it really just makes carbon sequestration in any way, shape, or form investable, that get this tax credit from $50 to $85. So all the pipelines you hear about, all the carbon sequestration to direct inject into other products, there's a great opportunity there. There's the SAF credit, which then says invest behind sustainable aviation fuels. And anybody that knows and heard me before is saying, has heard me say alcohol to jet will be a reality. We just didn't have a program to invest in it behind it, but the technology is there, both domestically and globally, whether it's some that have been announced and some that haven't been announced. There's definitely technologies. And then the last one is this clean fuel production credit, which is once I sequester the carbon, I get a new carbon score. And then every point of carbon reduction after that is worth 2 cents a gallon. And, we think that's a 30 to 35 carbon score reduction opportunity at 2 cents a gallon for an industry like us. It could be 50 to 60 to 70 cents a gallon uplift for a certain period of time. But we have to invest behind that, how to reduce the use of fossil fuels in our plants to power our plants, and look at things like fluidized boilers, or look at things like biomass boilers, or combined heat and power, or fuel cells, or whatever it is, to make sure we have uninterrupted power, but not really come off the grid or come out of the natural gas pipeline. So this really has laid out a program for us to decarbonize. And just to close on that, the best thing about all of that is these initiatives that I've laid out, even though they're in a very partisan bill, and we know it's going to be a partisan vote, these things that I've laid out are actually bipartisan initiatives. We've been trying to get into some type of legislation. So while you might hear it's a partisan bill, at least on some of these for our industry and what we focus on in agriculture, there's partisan support on a lot of these initiatives. So it's a really fantastic opportunity for this industry to really invest behind decarbonization.
Well, Todd, fantastic insight into that. I'm glad you brought up all those points. And you mentioned a few things on products in that response as well. And I just love to kind of expand on that, talk a little more about Green Plains. I know kind of the transformation, more products with local farmers, crops you guys are working with, and then also some of your processes as well. Can you just kind of touch on that for us real quick?
Yeah, so we always knew that the traditional Generation 1 dry milling operation only made 2 or 3 products. And yet we knew that there's 200 different products or more that can come out of a corn kernel. And so, but we never really had the ability or to access those products, whether it's starches or sugars or fibers or dextrose or glucose or fructose or all these things that come out of a corn kernel. We just made ethanol and distillers grains and a little bit of corn oil. And so, what we did is with our partners at BlackRock and Osprey, we made an investment and then ultimately acquired Fluid Quip Technologies and their suite of IP that can start to grab higher value products in our process to really transform Green Plains from a Generation 1 ethanol producer to a Generation 2 biorefinery platform, where we can do everything all the way through sugar to bioplastics or sugar to food or dextrose to products or starches or fibers or yeasts and those type of things. So, and high value proteins, and grab more oil out of the kernel. We knew that it was always there. We just never had the IP or the technology to do that. So what we did is, as I said, we acquired the technology, and we have a $500 million transformation program just on the Generation 1 assets, just to grab higher value proteins, higher value yeast, and higher value oils. And so we've been rolling that out. We have two operating. We've got 3 that are starting up this last half of the year. We've got 2 more going into construction and 1 partnership. So by 2024, which we've laid out, we'll be a completely different company than what we look like today. But on top of that, there's going to be, what's the next thing we do? It's going to be around clean sugar. We know we have a technology as well that we believe we can, instead of make ethanol all the time and alcohol, we can actually grab some of that starch and convert it into fructose and glucose and dextrose, and partner with companies on co-locations into food and things to bioplastics, biochemicals, bio-MEG, bioglycols, anything like that. So we feel like that's a big thing for us. We do specialty alcohols. We're transforming how we buy it. We're working with customers around the world in pet food who would have never bought from a Generation 1 plant, in aquaculture who would have never bought from a Generation 1 plant, but the product we're putting out is such higher quality than we've ever made before, and it gives them unique opportunities to then take these new products and build rations around them and change the way that the animal performs and so on. So we've really just got this amazing transformation happening, where with great support from the market and now with this program that I talked about on the Inflation Reduction Act, on top of everything we're doing, we think our company is, and we actually kind of think the industry at this point is starting to become understood a bit more. And this programs that are out there really, we think, revalues the whole industry. And it's all ultimately, where we make less motor fuel and we make more just aviation fuels. And I think that's where we can make a big impact as a company and as an industry, is in aviation fuels, which is really looking for a solution on from a decarbonization standpoint. It has to have a solution. And the only thing in critical mass, I believe, will be alcohol to jet at some point in our future. It might not happen in the next 2 years, but in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll see that. So we're really just on a massive transformation of this company. We're just getting started. It was a 2024 kind of end, really when we kick this thing into full gear while we're building these things. And all of that comes with lower carbon products, low carbon sugars, low carbon proteins, low carbon oils, all those type of things on top of that. And our investors are excited, our employees are excited, our customers are excited, and it's an amazing thing that we're doing with this company. It's an amazing opportunity.
Well, Todd, great insight, and really have appreciated catching up with you. Before we run out of time, any other final thoughts real quick, or where could folks learn more about all the great things you guys are doing with Green Plains?
Yeah, listen, as we started out, our sustainability report is online. It's got, it's having a great response. You can read through, you can learn a lot about what we're doing as not just a company, but as an industry, and how to think about the future of what we do. Remember, we're fighting for our share of the fuel of the fuel tank, and it's a big foe and opponent that we have ahead of us, and we fight hard for getting that share. But it's a great fuel, and so you can go on gpreinc.com and look at everything that we're doing. You can just Google it. You can Google Fluid Quip, everything we're doing from that perspective. And it's all out there. And I think as you read it, I think we're laying the roadmap, at least our roadmap. Now, somebody may have another path, but we're laying our roadmap to success and how this industry and our company and really to the benefit of not just the consumer but to the U.S. farmer can really participate in all the aspects of what we really can do with these crops and how we could play a role in this society of decarbonization that's so important to people.
Well, again, online, gpreinc.com. With that, President and CEO of Green Plains Incorporated, Todd Becker, appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us today, and hopefully we'll get to talk again real soon.
All right, anytime. Let me know. Thanks.